Hart. I can't even look up and see the bottom of her feet. That's how high I put her on a pedestal, ladies and gentlemen. This is family. This is an award-winning radio host. She's a fashion culture aficionado, a television personality, a businesswoman, a heavily desired woman by men and women. They all want to be around her. Come on. But one of the things I love about her, she has been constant since the first day I met her. I could close my eyes and sleep if she stood next to me the entire time without one worry in the world. And if we could have had her life on social media in the 90s, there would have been a slew of movies made about simply her and her nightlife. The one and only Bevy Smith. Bevy Smith. Bevy Smith. What up?
So happy to be here. This is a dream come true to be on Sway in the morning with my family about my book. Like, this is a big deal.
Yes, it is.
It's a big deal. Now, HB isn't here with us this week. She took a few days off, so it's Tracy and me. Yeah, you know how you Scorpios do. When y'all want to take off, y'all just go and take off, man.
Respect our priorities.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk, man. Let's talk. The book is called Bevelations, Lessons from a Mother, Auntie, Bestie. And you can find Bevelations on Radio Andy on Channel 102. One of the first things I want to start with is it actually has nothing to do with the book. I wanted to get your opinion on something real quick. Now that I think about it, you'll be the perfect person to ask about what recently happened with the cover of Vogue magazine and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. And the mistake that was made. One of the things, Tracy broke down the story, how they posted the wrong picture and they put her in Chucks and kind of, I don't know, downplayed the glamour. A lot of folks was upset about it. It wasn't the picture they agreed on. What do you think about is it a mistake that Vogue made, or is that well within their rights? I heard they talked to her about the picture, agreed to it, but didn't post the picture she wanted.
Now, wait, I didn't hear that. That must be breaking news. I mean, the book launched today, so I have not been on anything.
Okay.
But to my knowledge, it was very much a thought-out thing where it was like, Kamala Harris is a very relatable woman, and that she went through, all of the campaigning in her Chucks and her Timbs, and so they wanted to keep that relatability, and they wanted to keep that kind of like, she's like a woman on the move, and she's going to get things done. And, as someone who wears 6-inch heels every day, you can't get a lot of things done in a 6-inch heel. You definitely can't run up and down, off of airplanes and run through the halls of Congress and maybe run away from crazy militia people in the Capitol in a 6-inch heel.
Hello.
So, I don't know that it's a mistake. What I will say is that I definitely prefer the pale blue photo over the actual cover. For me, the cover and I like that they gave the nod to the AKA moment with the pale green and the pale pink background, but that was not enough for me. I felt that the look could have just been better. I didn't like the dour suit. I just thought that the pantsuit just was like, I've literally seen Kamala Harris look better in small, intimate gatherings at, in people's homes when she was campaigning for presidency. I've seen her look better. So I just felt like it just wasn't up to snuff for the first black vice president. She's one step away from the presidency, and I thought that she should have looked more presidential, if you were. But I didn't mind the Chucks, but I just didn't like the haphazard look of the suit.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's fair enough. What are your thoughts about am I making a thing out of this that Vogue and her camp weren't necessarily aligned on this, or does this happen?
Well, that happens all the time because, traditionally magazines do not give cover subjects right of refusal. And you do not get approval. Traditionally you do not get approval, which is why when Beyonce actually, the last time she ever covered Vogue, she actually did not give them an interview. She wrote it herself, and she actually selected the young man, Tyler, who actually shot Kamala Harris's cover. She selected him to shoot her cover. And so Beyonce is one of the very few people that has ever come to Vogue with such heavy demands and was able to actually realize those demands. Traditionally, people are not able to. So it would not shock me if Kamala Harris was not aware of what they were going to post or what they were going to use, and it would not shock me if it wasn't her first pick, because that's just the way it goes down when you're dealing with an American fashion institution, or actually a global fashion institution like Vogue.
Okay. Bevy Smith is with us. Listen, citizens, the new book is called Bevelations, Lessons from a Mother, Auntie, and Bestie. And I couldn't wait to and all three of these personalities are you. You're the mother, the auntie, and the bestie?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So the mother comes from I have a lovely, amazing group of young gay sons that take good care of me. They call me mother, but really mother, the people that first started calling me mother ever was on Bravo's Fashion Queens. Derek J. and Miss Lawrence, who actually are going to be reunited with me today on Bevelations, Channel 102, 5 o'clock. We're having a big Fashion Queens reunion, and because people love that show. But they were the first ones to call me mother on the set of Fashion Queens. But now it's like everywhere I go, if I see some of my black gay fans, they'll be like, Mother Bevy, and I love it because I do feel maternal towards that community because they've given me so much, and it really is a reciprocal love there. And then, of course, the auntie comes in, like for my babies like Tracy, all my little young girls who I'm seeing on the move, and they're powering through. They're trying to figure out their careers and their personal life. Well, I'm that cool ass auntie to them, or I'm sometimes they call me the rich auntie. I'm that to them. And then of course Bestie is for like women like Heather B and other women that are in my contemporaries. And we're the ones that we can sit up and we can trade war stories, okay? And we gonna have the cocktail. We gonna take the trips together. We gonna do all the things together. So that's kind of like where the subtitle came from. But overall, it's just a connection, an authentic connection between us folks and we get each other. And then I've learned all these lessons over the years, and now I wrote the book to help impart those lessons. So I'm helping people build a personal brand. I'm talking to you about the F's and fumbles. I don't know if we can curse, but
Yeah, go for it. That's what you
the
feel.
fucks and fumbles of life. You know what I mean? Because that's a real thing. Everyone goes through some fucks and some fumbles, and I'm talking about mine and how I got through all of those things. So yeah, it's like all the lessons that I've learned over the years, and especially my life as a fashion advertising executive, and then changing my life to become this media personality that you see before you. And that's a 15-year journey, Sway. So you came into the game young. You always knew what you wanted to do. I came into this game at 38 years old.
And then look what you was able to do with it. Bevy Smith, ladies and gentlemen. Bevy Smith, quintessential Harlem girl. Quintessential. Bevy and Tracy, I'm gonna jump out of the way. I know you got a bunch for Bevy.
Appreciate that.
But I know a lot about your story, just being in Harlem for the past 20 years, and people really highly respect you. And they respect you for a lot of who you were prior to social media. And you even say in this book, you was a social media star 10 years before social media ever hit the ground. It's a great thing it wasn't around back then. So
right, exactly.
Right.
So let's talk about back then, Bevy Smith. Why not? All right. What was it? I want to go back to, because Bevy, you're a cultural pillar. You were around when a lot of culture was developing, especially in Harlem. You were around in the 80s, the 90s, and you saw the development of Harlem. When we watched the Paid in Full movie and you hear about Alba and Rich Porter, you were around during those days. You saw the rise of Bad Boy Records when Diddy became this prominent figure in Harlem. What was it like back then? And let's say when Biggie was big and Diddy started coming out, what was it like? Can you describe Harlem?
Oh, well, first of all, it was the golden age of hip hop, right? So before we even get to before we get to Diddy, we gotta go through the Paid in Full era.
Let's
and that's
talk
one of
about
my favorite eras. That's the rooftop roller skating rink. That's Dapper Dan in his original incarnation. It's all of these magical moments. We were kids. We were literally children, like really from the paid in full era. Like I was like 17 years old, like up until maybe like 22 is like probably when that era ended. So when you watch that film and you see everybody making all these moves and doing all these things, and it looks so fabulous and glamorous, it's sad for me. I feel good about it, but it's also sad for me because I know that so many of those guys that perished, they didn't even make it to 30. They didn't even make it to 25. And I know so many people in our communities have those kind of stories, but very few of those stories are immortalized on film. And, so that's why, this summer I had a chance to spend a good amount of time, around Alba and everything because he's back outside and everything. And it's a bittersweet moment because it's like, wow, you made it through. We made it through. And there's not a lot of us still standing and still relevant from that era. And then that brings us into the Puff and the Biggie era. That's the golden age of hip-hop again, the 90s, right? And that was a magical time. Like, that's the tunnel. That's when money started getting poured into the business, because in the original early days of hip-hop, people wanted the rappers wanted to be hustlers. And then it flipped. And then the hustlers wanted to be rappers. And that's why the convergence of the money and the culture and the music was just so powerful. Like, I don't mention it in the book, but I remember Jay when he was a hustler. And we used to be at the supper club, and me and my friends would just be like, Jay, give us some champagne, because he would always have his champagne lined up on the bar. But he was a quiet dude, and we were just like, he was like one of the dudes that you could literally go over and be like, give me some champagne, and it wouldn't be like, well, give me some ass. You know what I mean? Like, he was a cool dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's in the book I talk about the fact that Biggie introduced me to Pac, because Pac came to town to do Above the Rim, I want to say, it was that film. Yeah. And that's how I met Pac. And we developed our own relationship. I had my own relationship with Big as well.
Can you describe those relationships? Like you obviously have a relationship with Alpo. Let's start with him. A lot of folks might not would hang out with him because of his track record. What is your relationship with him?
Well, I have to say this, right? Forgiveness is key, and anyone can be redeemed, right? You know what I mean? And the guy that has come home is a very different guy than the guy that was out in the streets and that was, doing all the crimes that he went to jail for. The Alpo today is super cool, chill. He goes about his business. He still likes his loud music. He comes by on his big Harley Davidson bike. He's going to be fly, but he's real chill and a lot more subdued. The Alpo from when we were kids was like, it was like Friday Night Lights every night. It was young, fly, and flashy, and he's not that anymore. And so, I do feel like he's changed. And, I definitely know that he's learned from his mistakes. I'm quite sure he would, now he's looking to do business and he's looking to, do films and different things like that. So, at first, I was hesitant. I wasn't like one of the people that was like running and wanting to do a ticker tape parade. But over the summer, like I said, we were in each other's company a lot, and it was a good time. And it was good to see him. You know what I mean? Like, just because that's a part of your youth. Like, well, I'm sure, back at the Bay, some fellas that maybe did some things that were very untoward. But if you could see him today, you might actually be like, you know what? It's good to see you, man. It's good to see you, my brother, right?
Yeah, no, I know a lot of guys who've done a lot of different things. I had nothing to do with it. Wasn't around when they did it, and I didn't live the life they lived. So if I see them, I see them like you still the kid I knew from elementary. I haven't seen you since elementary. What's up? Right. How you been? Let's talk about Jay-Z. Did you know then? Like, I love hearing stories like that about Jay. Jay hanging out at the bar, champagne, quiet guy. Anybody can approach him. Could you see then what his future may be?
No. So I had no idea. So Dame Dash was my friend. And, Dame was like the one. Like, Dame had all the sparkles around him. He had all the glitter around him, right? Just he had that Harlem swag about himself. It's so funny because when people try and like act like like Dame is like an asshole because, you know, he made all that money with with Rockefeller and all that. I'm like, pretty much when he was living in 1199, that was Dame. Like, it's not any different. It's not like money made him the braggadocious, you know, outrageous dude. I mean, he was that before. Mm-hmm. And Jay was like super quiet, and I'll never forget. I didn't even know he was an aspiring rapper. And then one night we were at M&G's. That's where we used to go after all the parties and stuff. We was up at M&G's, and he was like writing something down the pad. I guess that was rhyme. Well, we didn't care. We just was like, you picking up the check? You know what I mean?
Hey,
so
man.
A really funny story about that same era is I was friends with DMY, you know, from Rough Riders.
Rough Riders, yeah.
Yeah, and we went out to Freaknik one year. And we I guess we booked too late, and we didn't have hotel rooms. We couldn't get them inside the city, so we had to go to the outskirts. And me and DMX had to share a room, but I didn't know he was DMX. He wasn't DMX yet. He was in the studio with the Rough Riders. But we shared a room, and nothing happened, totally platonic, and he was like a really lovely, you know how sensitive he is, and you know what a deep thinker he is. And we were just talking, and we took like long walks in the morning and stuff. I'm an early riser. He was an early riser and everything. And then like maybe a year later, I saw him at M&G's. But I didn't realize it was the same guy. But no, I realized it was the same guy. So I said, you know, how's everything going? How's the music going? And he was like, it's going good. It's going good. So when I came back to the table, my girlfriend was like, how you know DMX? I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, that's DMX. Get at me, dog. I was like, get out of here. That's the guy that I was hanging out with at Freaknik. For real, that's get at me, dog.
That's
it was so crazy.
Yo, Bevy Smith is here. Go ahead.
You know, that was his first single, Get At Me, Dog.
Get At Me, Dog.
That was tearing up the charts.
Bevy got her new book, Bevelations, Citizens. I'm just giving you these stories so you go get this book. Lessons from a mother, auntie, bestie. Tracy, let me ask you two more things.
Wow, two?
No, yeah, just two. That's it. The first one is I met Pac. It's interesting that you met Pac through Biggie because I met Biggie through Pac.
Wow.
So, in New York, and I want to say at the Palladium, I think. I can't think of what venue it was, and Pac ran up to me. He knew me from the town. We would hang out in the town in Oakland. And he said, yo, Sway and Tech, I got to introduce you to somebody. I got to introduce you to this dude. He the dopest dude in New York. I mean, hype, like Pac hype. This is Biggie. This Biggie Smalls. That's how he introduced him, Biggie Smalls. And Big was like, yo, what up? And we connected that day, and I was like, man, I was talking shit. I was like, yo, if you come on my show, you better bring bars. It was big. It was Biggie, though. What was your relationship with Pac like?
Oh, that was a beautiful thing because in the book I talk about, you know, all my different personas. So my hip-hop hottie persona was Big Bev from Uptown. Mm-hmm. And she was the quintessential party girl. Now, this is the girl that lived on the Instagram before there was an Instagram. Mm-hmm. You know, I was fly. I had the hourglass shape. You know, all the guys loved me. I was being sponsored. You know, I had a good job. You know, I was living the life. I was living a really good life, and I was on the scene. Most importantly, I was on the scene. I was everywhere that you wanted to be in hip-hop. Ow. And so, you know, when I met Pac, though, I was dealing with one of his friends, and so we were able to hang out because now I'm just going to keep it real with y'all. You know, in the 90s and stuff, you know, we would just, like, roll around together and, like, you know, we would be at a party and then everybody would, like, team up, like, pair off. Like, if you was dealing with somebody's friend, then y'all would all go to the hotel together. Y'all would get all separate rooms, of course. Nobody was sleeping together. It wasn't an orgy. Mm-hmm. But, you know, and then sometimes Pop would come into our room and we would talk. After, you know, like, everything got settled, we was, you know, Pop didn't have, like, a lady that he was really dealing with like that. So the girls would just leave or whatever. And then he would come by my room that I was, you know, with his friend, and we would just talk deep about politics, about literature, and all kinds of things. And so I say in the book that Big Bev from Uptown sat down when Pac was around, and Lulu Brown Bevy came back into the fold. because he got to see my smart, shy, curious, adventurous, and empathetic side. He got to see the core of me, and I got to see the core of him. So when the book A Rose Grows Out from Concrete, when that came out, I wasn't shocked because I knew that Tupac.
Right.
Bevy Smith, and then I think you gotta. I think you gotta how to navigate through. You gotta write another book. How to navigate through the entertainment business without having to sleep, or how to without having to sleep with someone. How to prevent that, because in the '90s, come on, Bev, in the '90s that was hard body, toxic masculinity. Folks did not care. Like it wasn't no Me Too movements in the '90s. Like how was you able to keep them off?
Well, I didn't work in the business though. You got to remember, I worked in fashion advertising.
Okay.
So I was not in it to try and be in the business. It never even occurred to me to be in the music or in the entertainment business. That was not my goal. I had a really great career that was totally separate from my nightlife, from my personal life. So I kept the two very separate. So for me, all those guys represented to me was a good time. It was just my culture, right? So I wasn't looking to them to get put on in any kind of way. I was just looking at them like, okay, well, you're fun, you're popping, let's go.
Let's go.
And so it's so funny because I have friends that weren't female friends that weren't in the business at that time, and women like myself, we didn't connect back then because they were like trying to come up through the ranks, and I was just there for a good time, not for a long time. I was just like, I was the girl that I'm coming in the studio and you giving me the side eye because you're a journalist and you're trying to get it done, and I'm like coming in like, big, what's up, big, blah, blah, blah. I'm like doing all those things, and you're trying to get a story done, and I'm disrupting things. I mean, so it's very, very different. But I will say this, though. Even though there was a lot of toxic masculinity going on back then, I never got into a situation where I was forced to do anything and where I felt like I was being blatantly disrespected. In the book, I talk about one big hip-hop mogul who did threaten to throw me out of the window.
Okay, let me ask you about that moment, because you don't name the person, but it's very obvious who it was.
Oh, is it?
Come on. Bev, I'm from the West. I'm from the West Coast. I'm from the West Coast. You a big time. What colorway?
What color did he like to wear?
Red.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that Oakland coming up.
Bev, I'm from the West. Come on. Since you didn't say, but you didn't say his name. Why did you choose? Like, it's a lot of places you don't say people's name. You even talk about dating a big-time record executive who was at the top of his game, biggest name in the game, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out who's she talking about. But you didn't give his name, and y'all dated for maybe 4 years, right? What was your thought process? Because usually these publishers want you to give names. So what?
This wasn't that kind of book. It wasn't a tell-all. You know what I mean? Like, and so I was very clear about that. And when I pitched the book to them, this wasn't about my celebrity friendships. This wasn't about my, all the famous people that I had ever been with. It wasn't that kind of a book. This was really about how I reinvented and changed my life. And so it wasn't required. And I didn't want to do that anyway because, I mean, that's not why people know me. I'm not like the girlfriend of. I'm not the wife of. I'm Bevy Smith. I stand alone. I stand solid on my own, my own laurels, on my own accolades. So I didn't need a man or any affiliation with a man to get me a book deal.
Okay.
So I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to play those games.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So you could, somebody almost, she threatened to throw her out a window, and because she wouldn't go to the Four Seasons with him for a barbecue.
Right.
Yeah.
Ridiculous because there's no barbecue facility at the Four Seasons. So I mean that was just a full-on scam. And I tell that story in the book because I point out that I was too old to be outside because at a certain point you age out of being the ingenue. And then you start being the old broad in the club that's like scowling at everybody. And and you go from wanting to party and hang out with people to wanting to set them up because you like, well, 5 years ago he didn't buy me that handbag, so now I'm dealing with a grimy dude. So let me set him. You know what I mean? Like you age out of it, and you have to be very careful about that. And that's something I wanted all my young ladies that are reading. Everyone loves to talk about Lori Harvey and everything, and for me, I'm like, Lori Harvey is living her best life. She's having the best time. She's super young. Mm-hmm. She's beautiful. She has a lot of access. Go and have your fun. And you know what? Lori Harvey just needs to get off the streets before, before it gets played out. You want to always be able to pivot. You never want to be a one-trick pony. And I'm sure she will. I have no doubt that Lori Harvey is going to wind up being hashtag goals for any young. I think that Lori Harvey will probably either marry incredibly well or either have an incredibly big career at whatever it is that she chooses to do. At least that's my hope for her.
I agree too, and I think she has an awesome dad, awesome parents. So let's add that to it too. Yeah. I said the same thing. Bevy Smith is here. The book is called Bevelations: Lessons from a Mother, Auntie, Bestie, as well. Lynn want to show you some quick love. Lynn and PA, Grand Risings.
What up, Lynn?
Hey, family.
Hey. Lynn, you got a question for Bevy?
Well, I wanted to tell her I love her on TV, Take 6, and all the other shows she's hosted on, co-hosted on. I'm very much interested in her, and I want to be adopted by Auntie Bevy. And then we have a Bevy Smith here in Pittsburgh from the 70s, 80s. She had a Bevy Smith.
Yes.
So are you related?
No, but that's the reason why my name is not Bev Smith in TV, because Bev Smith already existed, and I have nothing but respect for her. So I was like, I got to be Bevy, because Bev Smith is already, she already put it down. She was big in the 80s and in the 90s. She was on BET. So, yeah, I have a lot of respect for Bev Smith.
Hey, Lynn, thanks for your call. Make sure to get the book, Bevelations: Lessons from a Mother, Auntie, Bestie by Bevy Smith. Go ahead, Tracy. What you waiting on?
Thank you, man. Oh, my gosh. Never practiced so much patience in my life. Bevy, you already know, man, my love for you runneth over in all of the forms, girl. And glamour, I feel like, is part of what connects mother to auntie to bestie. I have a couple of questions for you, but on auntie, you know what it made me think about, Bev? It made me think about how some women, I remember when Ava DuVernay, Oprah, and Gail, and they were saying that they preferred not to be called auntie. And so I wondered for you if you felt like more women should embrace that word, or maybe before someone calls someone an auntie, they should run through like a little mental checklist.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said when we started the interview, auntie is really, for me, the people that can call me auntie are young women. So you cannot be sitting up 40 years old, my oldest nephew is 36. I was 18 when he was born. So if you're older than 36, don't call me auntie.
Okay.
That's the way I do it. Then you move into the sexy category. You know what I mean? But but I love like you, Tracy, come on. Yes, auntie all day.
Thank you, Auntie Bev.
Yeah, that works for me. But like if you were like, if I'm like 54 and you like 44 and you talking about auntie, I'm like, no, baby.
Right.
We slinging and doing the same things. Like that's not gonna work.
Right, we peers. I get it. Okay, now I kind of want to somersault into back to when you was in the fashion advertising world, Sway, because as soon as citizens, when you cop this book, Bevelations: Lessons from a Mother, Auntie, and Bestie, the glamour just comes at you initially from the first pages. And you was talking about all the perks that came with your job, the overflowing expense account, how you had you became accustomed to flying first class, you had the 20 hours a day with the car and the driver, all the European fashion shows, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Bevy, I need to hear what was the most outlandish or luxurious or bodacious or all three of those experiences within your memory bank?
I mean, there were so many of them. First of all, I'm from 150th Street and 8th Avenue. So to sit front row at a Gucci by Tom Ford fashion show, and then to go backstage afterwards, and Tom Ford is like Bevy and kissing you on both cheeks. I mean, that's pretty heady stuff.
Word.
To arrive in Milan for Fashion Week, and you go to your tradition, you go to your suite that you get every single time you're in the city, and the doorman opens the door, and there's like literally gifts on gifts on gifts from every major fashion house in Milan. That's heady stuff. There were so many magical moments, especially because, fashion is very much a thin white woman's game, and I'm neither one of those things. Mm-hmm. So for me, I was always like very proud of who I was and where I was from. I always led with Harlem first, and I let the folks know that, who I was more than enough, and I did not want to be like you. What you have to offer the world is nice for you, but what I have to offer the world, I think, is a lot more special and unique, and will bear a lot more fruit. And now, of course, you see that, right? You see now our culture, urban culture, has really taken over pop culture. But I knew that back then. I knew that in the 90s that we were that. So I never did the code switching thing. I never felt like I needed to be other. When they would ask me where I was from, I would always say Harlem. Harlem is in Manhattan. So I could have easily just been like, I'm from Manhattan. Mm-hmm. No. I'm from Harlem. I wanted them to know what it was. And I'm glad I did, because guess what? I built my personal brand around being from Harlem. Uh-huh. And now there's so much money running through Harlem. And guess who's one of the first people that's always being called to do something whenever a corporation wants to target Harlem?
Bevy Smith. Bevy. Come
on. I love it.
If I'm from that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
Right. Big Bev from Uptown. And one more, if I could just squeeze it in, Calloway. Because you mentioned, Bev, Lil Brown Bevy, and how Lil Brown Bevy is your North Star. That's how you refer to her in the book. Everyone has their own Lil Brown Bevy, it's just who they are at the core. And I noticed that you bring up another family of Sway in the Morning, Iyanla Vanzant. You bring her up. A lot of her gems are sprinkled throughout your book. And so I'd love for you to share maybe a moment personally, professionally, that was low for you, and how, like Iyanla, how you was able to fix it in your life. Like, what was that remix you did to turn a burden into a blessing?
Well, the remix is always starting with mindset, right? The way you think about your life and the way you think about your circumstances in life is really going to dictate how it plays out. So in the book, there's a chapter called Broke but Blissful, and that talks about me running out of money after I left Rolling Stone to create this life as a media personality. So in the middle of all of it, and it's going really well, I'm writing for Essence and Glamour Magazine and Paper Magazine and all that, and I'm doing TV with E! And VH1 and BET and all of that, and it's going so well. But I'm not making any money at doing any of that stuff. As Sway will tell you, when you first break into TV, it's a very low-paying proposition. So
if at all.
Money, right? Okay, if at all.
Yeah.
So I ran out of money, but I was doing everything that I actually quit my job to do. So while I was going to housing court and while I was trying to stretch a can of salmon into 3 meals, I still felt very blessed and blissful, because I was like, but I'm clearly on the right path. Because when I went to housing court and some woman came up to me and said, oh, my God, I love you on VH1. And I was like, oh, my gosh, thank you. And so most people would have been so embarrassed because they would recognize the housing court. But instead, for me, I was like, no, that's a good thing that I was recognized. That means that even though I'm not even on there every week, but whenever I do show up on the screen, obviously people are gravitating towards me. I'm connecting with folks. And that means that I'm supposed to be on this path. I will become a TV personality. And sure enough, you see what happened. 2 shows.
Come on. You see what happened. It's still happening.
Manifest destiny.
Yes, indeed. Bevy Smith.
You see what happened.
And what makes your story so amazing, number one, I really love the chapter what you wrote about your father. Mm-hmm. And I know that was hard to do because Bevy's father passed away. And I got a beautiful daughter. You see my daughter, and
Yeah.
and you say in the book, I never expected to have to write about this. How hard was that for you, or was it easy?
No, it was really very tough because I wrote about my dad. My dad passed in April, and I think I wrote the chapter in May.
Uh-huh.
At the top of May, at that.
Yeah.
So it was really very hard. It was still very fresh. It still is very fresh, right?
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't even been a year yet. And so, it's so funny because I write that I never expected to have to write this chapter in this book. And even though he was 95 years old, so people are like, what do you mean? Like, clearly he wasn't going to last another 10, 20 years. And that's true. But, he was taken from us due to COVID, complications from COVID and everything. And also, my dad was there for when I signed my book deal. He was there when I handed in the first edit. He was always there. And I talk about it in my book, and Sway, as a dad, as a dad to a girl, you'll really connect with this. My father was always there for me and always a protector for me. And then when he started getting really old and sick, like around 92, which it took him that long to really get kind of infirm, we then became his caregivers. But, I talk about the last blackout that New York City had and about how my daddy was sitting outside waiting for me on the stoop with a bat, and he was in his 80s. And I was coming there to make sure and my mom were okay. And I was like, what are you doing here, Daddy? And he's like, I got to make sure my baby gets here okay. Like, that's crazy. But that's a father's love.
That's a father's love. Man, when he rests in power, I love the you put, I don't know if it's a piece of poetry that he wrote, something he wrote in the back, and I got a chance to read that. And I wanted to ask you, when one of the pivotal moments that happened in your life that I would imagine was a lot of fuel to even write this book, was a moment that took place in Milan when you had all these things going for you. And then all of a sudden, it was almost like it reads as if you had a nervous breakdown in Milan.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a Milan meltdown, that's for damn sure.
Yeah.
I just, there's, and the Beyonce song Pretty Hurt, she says, are you happy with yourself? And I had to ask myself that. And the answer was a resounding no. I was not happy with myself. I was not happy with my circumstances. I knew I did not want to continue to do this dream job that had become a nightmare. And it had nothing really to do with the job. It had everything to do with what I wanted out of life. And when I started really pinpointing the things that were no longer satisfactory to me about the job, the only thing that defined was the money that was keeping me there. And that was, and even then the money wasn't even making me happy. You know what I mean? And I was making six figures. This is like in 2005. I was making mid six figures in 2005. You know what I mean? That was a long time ago. And so that was
millionaire
really
status.
Yeah, it was really great money back then, and I still was like miserable. And I had to look at myself and say, well, what will make you happy? And literally it took me 5 years to determine what would make me happy. And so that's why in the book I talk about, changing your life. But I don't give you these platitudes that everyone else tells you. Oh, make a vision board. I did all of that. But it also still took me years to even figure out what I wanted to do. Then once I figured out what I wanted to do, I quit Rolling Stone. And then it took 7 years from Rolling Stone to get to Bravo's Fashion Queens. And when I got Bravo's Fashion Queens, that's when it all clicked. And that's when I became a bona fide, solidified TV personality. You can't take that from me. And honestly, guys, right now where I'm at with it, this book is the culmination of all the work that I put into since I quit Rolling Stone. So now we are closing the door on that chapter. This book is the book of completion. It's over. I'm moving on to the next because I don't rest on my laurels.
Ooh.
So now we got a whole new life planned out. And so we're going to watch that unfurl. I've already started doing it. So, I got a production deal with a TV network. I just did the art curation for a new film that's coming out with an Academy Award winner. So you're going to be watching this film in the fourth quarter of 2021. And when you read the credits, it's going to say, art consultant Bevy Smith. That's something I wrote in the book that I wanted to manifest. And I did it. I manifested it. It's happening. I wrote in the book that I won the production company. Guess what? I manifested that. It's happening. So I'm already on to the next.
Bevy Smith, we love you, Bevy.
Yes,
I can't
indeed.
say nothing. Listen, all of this conversation, and we ain't even scratched the surface of this book.
Listen.
This book is amazing. Bevelations, Citizens. Tracy, I got to start my book.
I've been saying that. Don't act brand new now.
Okay, well, damn, that was for the radio, Tracy. Thank you for exposing me.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna start the book club. Bevy, I love you, and I'm proud of you, and I'm inspired by you, and I love that you. When we first met, it was like we already knew each other.
Yeah.
We would see each other out on the scene with Rich Nice and legendary Damon and all these different folks. Yeah. We all be in the same circles, and I love you like a sister. You are my sister. You family, Bev. And one day I'm gonna get a dinner invite. Dinner with Bevy, maybe.
I'm gonna do a dinner for you, baby. I'm gonna do a dinner with Bevy in honor of Sway. Come on now, that's done.
Ooh.
Well, Bevy, I'm Hall of Fame now, baby. It's let's get it.
He do live in Harlem.
I do live in Harlem. I'm in Harlem right now. Bevy, love you. Continued success. Okay.
Love you too.
And make sure you follow her at Bevy Smith. Thank you, Bev. Thank you. Have a beautiful day. You too.
Bye, Auntie.
Gotta let that breathe.